Welcome home, where we provide information, inspiration, and motivator after motivator after motivator here on America's Next. I have James C. Ragland here with me today. How you doing, James?
Hey, good evening. How are you, Mr. Riley?
I'm doing quite well. I
Good.
noticed, I noticed when you place your name in different places, you always put James C. Riley. That says that you're a legacy man. Am I correct?
Kind of, sort of. I was named after my uncle who passed away about a year before I was born. And my grandfather's name was also James. And so my middle initial stands for Christopher. And so my grandfather was James Edward. I am James Christopher. And so I like to keep my middle initial because most of my family and many of my oldest friends still call me Chris to this day.
Right. Okay. What is your thoughts about legacy?
I'm blessed to have a legacy of my own, brother. For me, legacy really centers on um, who it is that is coming behind you
Mhm.
and who you are following behind. You know, a lot of people say, well, we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? And that much is true. We like to use the term last name first in my family. What that means is before the James C, you're always representing Ragland first. And so what we want folks to know and understand about us is anytime any one of us, you can expect excellence, you can expect greatness, you can expect effort and enthusiasm. And that's the legacy that we want to really kind of leave. And we try to teach that to our sons and our daughters as well. That is something that, we inherited from our ancestors. We inherited from the ones that really kind of taught us and guided us to this point. Our parents still live that. And so we want to try to pass that on and continue to pass that down through the years. It's something that's foundational for families. And so legacy, tradition, all of those things are really kind of wrapped up in who I am as a person and who my siblings are, especially, as well as my children.
Your family sounds like an institution. And I think that we can all clear across the world take note of the things that you just discussed in terms of last name first. When you look over and you say, he'll do well, he's a Ragland. She'll do well, she's a Riley. It sends the idea that you've been doing this. You're not new to this. You've been doing this.
Sure.
In other words, people have been teaching one another in your family, and you're carrying that tradition forward.
Yes, and I owe a lot of that to the strength of my ancestors, my great grandparents, who I had the pleasure of knowing, and passed all of that down throughout my entire family. But the one thing that I know for sure is that we have always been grounded in the Lord,
Mm.
and it is our ability and our faith in God and His promises that gives us the trust that we can do and be great. And so, greater works than this is what the Bible says about what you are supposed to do as a human being here on earth. Service to others is really what we are all about as a family. And so, yes, we really try to hold to those principles and try to make sure that we teach them, and not just teach them, but exemplify them in everything that we do, brother.
Mhm. Are you able to pass down maybe one of the jewels that was given to you by your forefathers, your mothers, and your family?
Yes. Well, I mean, there's so many that can be passed on. The some of, and I can get simple and complex. The one thing that my grandmother always said to me was be sweet.
Mm.
And it was really just a very simple and poignant way of telling me that everything that I have been taught, you need to be mannerable, you need to be honorable in all of your dealings with people. And it's always held to me because of its simplicity. She would say to you before you leave, all right, now be sweet. And what that meant to me is that I had the confidence of being able to say, yes, ma'am, and no, sir, and show that I had been raised in a home where those types of things were valued when you were speaking, not just to elders, but to people who you wanted to show respect to. And I grew up in an era where a lot of us were losing some of that. We really didn't have when I was coming up in my more formative years, we really didn't have a lot of folks that would like to speak to folks and say sir or ma'am to them. We were really kind of breaking from all of that. But, for me, that was very important because it was instilled in me. I saw value in being able to show respect to other people. And my grandmother, in her wisdom, articulated it to me in a very simple tone that I will always remember to this day. I just lost my grandmother in March. And one of the last thing she said to me was be sweet, because that was just something that was, ingrained in her. And she wanted me to always do that. And so, yes, that was a jewel. My grandfather, he had quite a few phrases that we learned in the garage. I'm not going to mention on your that we can't share, but one of the major things that he wanted to make sure was that you had a good work ethic, making sure that you demonstrated that, making sure that you put your family first in everything that it is that you are doing. You're going to always have some hiccups, and that's okay that you have hiccups, but you always be an overcomer. And you fight through some of the obstacles that life throws in your face. And life is going to throw things in your face, but you fight through those obstacles. You fight through those obstacles for the benefit of your family. And you're going to continue to be blessed. And so, I hear all of that still to this day when I'm going through a lot of the trauma and things that I go through on a day-to-day basis. My grandparents really instilled a lot of that in me. And then, other jewels really come from the living example of my parents. Father worked every single day, over 12 hours a day for the most part, would come home and just fall out on the couch working, all those hours in a plant.
Right.
It demonstrated to me everything that it meant to be a supporter of your family and everything that you did in a very tough environment. And my mother was the same way. My mother would fight me if I was less than my best.
Wow.
And that was, she made sure to let us know, she was never going to be scared of her sons.
Mm-hmm.
Never going to be scared of her children. And if I got to fight you, I'm going to do that. But you are going to, number one, respect me. You are going to diligently seek greatness and excellence in everything that it is that you do. And, those were examples that were lived for me. My mom wasn't much for talking.
Right.
An action-oriented type of person. And my father, he's just a living example of how you work for your family and their benefit.
Where did you grow up?
Born and raised Columbus, Ohio. Born and raised here, man. The Hilltop. I started off on Whitethorn Avenue. And shout out to Hilltop USA and all those folks on the Hilltop. Shout out to Highland Elementary. Shout out to the Ashburn Center, Oakley Full Gospel Baptist Church. The West Side is in me and will always be in me forever. And then, once my family, we really kind of congealed and were able to show some upward mobility. My parents moved to the north side, so we were in the Brentnell area. And then we moved even further north to what is now, Northeast Columbus, right there in the Mifflin area. Everybody calls it Easton now, but it was nothing but cornfields and soybeans when I grew up out there. And, but born and raised in Columbus, multiple sides of town. And I'm just a Columbus boy through and through.
Talk about the state fair there. What's going on? And, for those people who've never been to a state fair, don't understand the gravity of it. What did that contribute to your upbringing in Columbus?
Oh, man, it was must-see TV every single year, multiple times a year. The state fair in Ohio is the one place where folks can go and you're going to see somebody that you've known before. It's always a positive environment. You've got, back when I was coming up and even to this day, that's where a lot of folks in Columbus got a chance to see their first concert. So you got to see groups like New Edition would come through the fair. Prior to me, the Jackson 5 was at the Ohio State Fair. They had all sorts of events and it was always you had the Midway where you could get on the rides. You had a lot of, all the food that you can eat. You had the butter cow contest, carve things out of butter. And, it was
cakes.
Interesting, man. The interesting part about where the Ohio State Fair is located, the Ohio State Fair in Ohio predates the Ohio State University. And so what a lot of people don't know, the Ohio State Fair sits between 11th Avenue and 17th Avenue. And right there, that is really to the west of the Ohio State Fair. That is the Ohio State University, right there in between those boundaries. And Ohio State was founded as the Ohio Agricultural and Mechanical College. And the agriculture piece is really what the fair pushed into the Ohio State University. And so what was happening was, as Ohio State, as a land grant institution, the fair was used for the agricultural center for the state. So from all around the state, you had farmers who were coming and converging on the city of Columbus and showcasing a lot of the innovative things that they were doing on the farms with animals and with crops and all of those things. And that manifested itself into the Ohio Agricultural and Mechanical College that now is the Ohio State University. And so land grant institutions were founded so that you could grow and expand the ability to farm and do those types of things in states like Ohio. And so the fair is really important to the history of our state, to the history of the Ohio State University and that particular area. And so, a lot of folks don't necessarily know that. I was blessed to go to Oakland Park Traditional School, where we had in fourth grade was our social studies book was called Columbus, the Buckeye Capital, in which I learned about the Ohio State Fair and its placement and what that meant to the Ohio State University. And then when I grew up, I had the pleasure of working for the Ohio State University in another capacity, running a nonprofit down there that dealt with its businesses. And then I was really able to do a lot of studying about the topography of the area and how all of that was kind of intertwined on an even higher level. And so the Ohio State Fair, man, I wish that we would not have been able to, that we were able to get in there because of COVID this year. It didn't really happen. And so looking forward to what we're going to do with the fair, but it is an institution here in the state of Ohio. And I would suggest that if you are a resident, you must see the fair. That is must-see TV. That is, a bucket list item for you if you are from the state of Ohio or an outsider.
Absolutely.
Fair, bro.
Now, Martin Luther King spoke about land grants on several occasions. And so when you talk about land grants as it relates to agriculture, can you remind us of the importance of agriculture? And then let's talk about where we are in terms of our involvement with agriculture today.
Absolutely. And so when you think about the history of land grant institutions, they're really a post-slavery phenomenon. And really, think about it this way. When slaves were freed and we were then sent out into America without the promise that was made to us of the 40 acres and a mule, think about who had the skill sets at that time. In the South, the slaves were the ones that were doing the work. As far as the agriculture was concerned, who knew better about farming than the ones that were doing all the work all the time? Right? And so you've seen the ratios where you had a litany of slaves to a very small number of owners and white folks that were on a lot of the plantations. And so what was happening, the government started coming up with land grant institutions for primarily the reason to start teaching white folks to do agriculture and on a mass level, because we were the ones with the skill sets. And so they gave all of these institutions to the states and allowed the states to really put schools in place that would allow for folks to learn about agriculture, primarily here in the state of Ohio, but in all over the country. Now, to us, what that meant was, as we started founding HBCUs, you see institutions like Tuskegee, you see institutions like Prairie View, you see institutions like Florida A&M, North Carolina A&T. All of those institutions were agriculturally based institutions so that we could do the same thing for ourselves. We didn't have we couldn't go to some of those other schools at those times. And so you started seeing these HBCUs crop up so that they could, in mass levels, teach us how to do the things that we had already known how to do, but even on a better on a higher level for us. So agriculture is still important. You know, as we start to look at the shifts that are being made within our inner cities right now, you see a return to urban farming. You see a lot more Black folks doing what they can to provide gardens, you know, right there in their dwellings right now. You see, you know, for example, both my sister and my father both have gardens. My sister does hers a little bit different. It's through you know, potted plants that are kind of propped up off the ground. But my father, he has a bigger backyard, so he's got a little bit more room to do more gardening within his backyard. And so they're all, you know, my sister grows a lot of the spices that we, you know, that we've used for all of the foods that we, you know, all the cookout is a bunch of my sister's spices and things that we do.
Okay.
Collard greens and stuff, and the tomatoes that we're using and canning still. Those are the types of skill sets that we're redeveloping in the Black community, and not just with my family, but at large. You see urban farming institutions. You see people who are learning more about some of the empty vacant lots that are within our communities that are now in food deserts, but we're returning those lots over into urban farms right now to provide food, quality food for our community. But it is also teaching a skill set. And I mentioned Highland Elementary School on Highland Avenue here. That is where I started kindergarten. But right across the street from Highland Elementary School is land that my church still owns that serves as the Highland Youth Garden. And right there is precisely what urban farming is on steroids. They've got grants from the Ohio State University, as well as the Mid-Ohio Food Bank and some of the other institutions that are here wrapping around that institution. And it literally serves as an outdoor classroom for Highland Elementary School students to go into that youth garden that is still owned by the church, learn about farming, learn about urban farming, learn about vegetables and what they mean for them, how to eat healthy, how to cook those vegetables. And it's really a real good relationship, because right there on the hilltop where it resides is a food desert. You can't get to a grocery store for, you know, I think probably around 3 miles from that spot. And so agriculture is something that's returning to Black folks specifically, but really returning to our cities.
I think it's phenomenal the way that you discuss that, because I see agriculture as a missing key to our control of progress. When you look at populations of people who are at risk, those tend to go hand in hand with less than the best nutrition. And so when you're talking about organizations that were originally agriculturally based, who might be now operating in capacities that don't look very much like agricultural activity, it's refreshing to hear you talk about the resurgence of agriculture. And I want to use this moment to raise awareness about the importance of agriculture. A lot of institutions that we respect, they became powerful because they were invested in the cultivation of fruits and vegetables, which is the number one necessity. And so, you know, at the same time that we want to achieve and have a legacy and be knowledgeable about what's important, be reminded today of the importance of agriculture and our control of agriculture.
Yes, sir. And
do you have any tips for beginners? Anybody who's going to take this as a faculty of their leadership and want to start a garden? You got any tips for us?
Yeah, there are local people who can help you do that. And, you know, we've got quite a few organizations here that are operating Local Matters and quite a few other organizations that can help you with urban gardening and urban farming. Don't lose sight of and don't lose faith in what it is that you're trying to do. Don't just give up on it because it looks like it's hard to do. Look out for those types of institutions that are within your community that can help you do it with urban farming and all of that, because it's that important. Our food deserts are vast, and we need to start learning how to re-engage with our ag program. I see that my dad is signed on this right now. You can talk to Tim Ragland. Hey, we've got a business called Ragland Enterprises. I will consult my father out to you all. Okay. And go all around the country and show you how to put a garden in your backyard for a limited fee. So I'm just godly proud that we would be able to get into this type of conversation. But please don't give up faith in that. We need to make sure that we're eating healthy and that we're learning how to cook these quality foods that we can grow ourselves and keep ourselves healthy.
Well, this conversation is a reminder to everybody who's going to watch today and in retrospect of the importance of agriculture. And we can't say that enough. Now, Ohio is a Midwestern state where, like you said, you look around, it might be a building there today, but it used to be a cornfield and people remember that. That's right. But there are states like New York and other coastal states where people are not gardening and investing in agriculture the way that you might have the mind to do. But this episode is going to raise awareness of the power of agriculture. And so yes, talk to us about any memories you might have of sitting down, snapping green peas.
Yeah, buddy.
Peeling potatoes. You know, talk about it. Give us a few of those memories.
Yeah. So look, man, 164 Whitethorn Avenue had a garden from the time that I was born all the way up until, my grandfather passed away a few years ago, probably about 5 years ago, but he had a garden the entire time that he was there. And we, I used to sit on the front stoop right there on the porch and snap peas and snap green beans with my grandmother. We always ate, the onions and the peppers that were out on the side. And, they used to grow mint along the side of the house that we would use for, all types of things, man. We'd have potatoes and that Shirley Caesar song, greens, beans, potatoes, tomatoes, you name it. We had it in our backyard. And some of the finest memories I had, man, was trying to shoot those groundhogs and the squirrels that were trying to get inside those gardens with the BB gun. My grandfather, he didn't play all that. And so we did everything to try to keep those groundhogs out of that garden, grew a lot of cabbage and all types of good things that we had back there in the backyard. My grandparents and my mother was from North Carolina.
Wow.
So agriculture, our family is from Farmington, North Carolina. And so, ag is still, very important in Cedar Creek, North Carolina, and Farmington, North Carolina, Davie County, North Carolina. And so all of that was carried up to here through the migration of my grandparents. And so, all those snapping of the peas and eating what you could grow, making sure that you knew that the stuff that we were eating today, the squash that we were eating, the okra that we were eating was something that was grown in that backyard, how to harvest it. We will never go hungry because those skill sets were implanted in us from our grandparents. And, my father is the same way down in Chillicothe, Ohio, same thing. With the Ragland family in Chillicothe, Ohio, it's the same type of relationship that was passed down. You talked about legacy. We have a legacy of farming within our family, and so that carries over. So you get to see it. My sister does a great job. I use the time that my sister grows on my eggs every single morning. I've got just a basket of time that I use to put on my eggs every single morning, and that is something that's very important to me. And so those are the things that stay with you forever. My grandmother and my grandfather always harvesting those things, and then having the entire family be a part of doing what it is that we're doing to make it so. And then that table, if you get on my Facebook page, you can see every single year what our Thanksgiving table looks like, bro. And a lot of those things, it never fails that we've got some things on that table that have been grown by our family members that we are, it's truly a harvest time for our family. And that's very, very important for us.
Some of the most inspirational tables that I've seen have been either in religion or in movies or some form of media. And it's usually a big, long table. How long is the table that you're talking about?
Well, I think this year we had 3 8-foot tables, I believe.
Whoa.
Yeah. And
24 feet?
It was probably, I think it was 3 8-foot tables that we used this year. And frankly, think about it from this from this perspective. Like I said, my grandmother passed away in March. Thanksgiving was her favorite holiday. And so for us, we were determined to make sure that that legacy, that tradition continue for our family. And so we are blessed. My aunt has a home that could fit all of us, not necessarily with the 6 feet distancing apart, but as far distant apart as we could. And so it required that, because we did want to have more space than usual because of the guidelines of the state. We were trying our best to kind of follow that. But what we weren't going to do was allow for Thanksgiving to go by without us getting together. Right. So legacy was able to continue. That tradition was able to continue. And so if you go on my Facebook page and go back to Thanksgiving Day, you will see a Thanksgiving table that is set in our traditional format. You know, we're still using the china that my grandmother had passed down to her, that she has now passed down through our family, that we're going to continue to use. It's always nothing changes, and I think that's what I put on my caption for my Facebook. You know, it still doesn't stop because that is what tradition is. That is what our family means. And so, yeah, I think it was 3 8-foot tables that were there, all set up, you know, the way we had name tags for everybody. We even had a new member of our family, and my son brought his girlfriend for the first time. So if you can imagine, the first time this young lady is meeting our family is at Thanksgiving dinner. And so she got her hat dunked into the creek, as my grandma.
Listen, when we talk about the imagery of a 24-foot table, even down to your son bringing his new partner to the celebration, when she sees the family coming together and helping to feed one another, socializing and engaging each other over a 24-foot table, she's going to think, oh, this is a family I need to be a part of. And so what we have discovered so far in this conversation is that when you have a agricultural mindset about the culture at large, out of that you get morality, you get confidence, you get mental fortitude, you get ability to cooperate with others, you get points when it comes to marrying someone, you get inter and intra-family legacy.
Yes.
These are so many of the things that we look for in general conversation. I'm 32 years old. These are the hallmarks that we try to figure out on a daily basis. Young people, college age, older than college age, and younger than college age, trying to figure out how to put those hallmarks in their families going forward. And what we've discovered today is that agriculture is a critical piece of instilling those tenets in your family. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to James C. Ragland today, and this is a very essential conversation. Get somebody, tag somebody, like, subscribe this video, and we'll be right back after a brief message. America's Next Motivator, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern, Tuesday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. America's Next Motivator, hosted by me, Cedric Riley, and sponsored by the Pride Empowerment Network. And we're back. James, how you feeling out there?
Doing well, Cedric, and thank you for having me. Thank you to the Pride Empowerment Network for giving you this platform and really being an inspiration to those around the country, man, that need to hear it. I'm so happy to be with you, young brother.
Without a doubt. Yes, sir. Now, I've heard you mention the church several times in this conversation. And I'd like for you to talk about the power of the church. What has it done for you? So that we can all understand why we need to keep the church close. Don't run away from it.
True.
Keep it close. Talk to us.
Yeah, so I've been a member of the Oakley Full Gospel Baptist Church for essentially my whole life. It was really 2 blocks away from where my grandmother and my grandfather lived, and so it's literally next door to my elementary school, Highland Elementary School. It used to be. We've now moved, but when I was coming up, my church was next door to my elementary school, and so really. At that time, my church encompassed a youth community center called the Ashburn Center, which was the brainchild of my pastor at the time. And so my whole life was going to that church either before and after school, all summer long, all the way up through, the time for me to go into the military and into college. I spent the majority of my off time at the church. And a lot of folks call it the Ashburn, but it was really called the church to me because I was one of those that was a member of the church. I also participated in every single youth activity that the church had to offer. So all of the arts programming, all of the athletic programming, the meals that were fed to us. And then when I needed to, I could go into the church building, and that's where I learned how to sing. And that's where I learned how to do, my scripture readings and all my other type of stuff. It was, that was just a hub for me. I didn't know anything different than the church. And so, now, fast forward to today, I'm a deacon at Oakley Full Gospel Baptist Church. Shout out to Bishop Herman Ware. Shout out to the deacon board. Shout out to the Oakley 4G network. I'm the director of the men's choir. We haven't been able to sing since COVID started. And so I haven't, I miss my guys and getting in there and singing with the brothers. But the church is very important to me.
What is the meaning of a deacon? What's that mean for you to be a deacon versus just a regular member of the church?
A servant of the people and a servant for the pastor. The simplest way to explain it is that we are there specifically for the service of the congregation. Our goal is to make sure that if there are things that need to be done that don't require the pastor's attention, then the deacon should be handling that so that the pastor can work on his messaging and hearing from the Lord. And so a lot of the scuttlebutt that happens within the church, effective deacons are able to shield the pastor from that. We're able to handle some of the things that our congregation may need if we're operating effectively.
And then what comes out of that entire process is positive role models for the community. So, in other words, the church is almost a part of the governance of the community.
Well, we've got to do an even better job of that because I think what's going to happen for the church right now, we've got to be even more forward facing in bold, bigger initiatives. And what do I mean by that? I mean specifically, I saw a meme the other day that talked about us having mega churches but no mega schools, right? If the church can be at the forefront of solving a lot of the problems at the granular level, then I think you'll start to see an even more swift recovery of our community, right? And we see institutions where the church is involved. With our HBCUs, you've got several HBCUs that are sponsored, by the AME Church and some other church bodies. But what are we doing at the ground level? What are we doing from the pre-K up through 12 level as a church? And I mean small C church body, so that we can start to capture a lot of our kids, so that we can feed even more of them to our HBCUs later on. See, we've got an issue right now with the school to prison pipeline that is happening from the pre-K through 12. And so the real fight is making sure that we can get our students from the younger ages into the colleges. And so I think that's going to be the next iteration of the big initiative from the church. I'm working on that on a day-to-day basis so that we can congeal other church bodies from around the country to start implementing some resources and a lot of not just money, but human capital behind the founding of earlier institutions of learning so that we can break this school to prison pipeline that's currently going on in urban centers and beyond around the country.
I've been waiting on someone who is a product of the church say exactly what you've just said, which is that the church intends to step up to the front line and deal with one of the biggest, if not the biggest elephants in the room, which is the school to prison pipeline. It can't always be that one man individual who's also a basketball coach trying to save the whole neighborhood. It can't always be that one mother who's a school aide trying to save the whole community. At some point, it has to involve, our higher council, which in a lot of neighborhoods is the church. The people that you put on your best manners for so often are members of the church. And so when the church says, I'm going to step to that front line, I think that you're opening up a whole nother vertical of possibilities. Because now I want to know this. Is it okay to just have an after school program and just have a mentoring program and just have an additional community service? Or do we need to attach a think tank onto the church so that we could come up with new ideas of how to tackle some of our most obvious problems?
Well, I think the one thing that I know for sure is that these problems can be solved. I think what it takes is initiative. I think it takes a lot of faith. I think it takes the right people connecting with the right people and a strategy. And quite frankly, for me, Black folks, we have the capacity to solve our own problems, right? We've got all types of people who can put together business plans. We've got all types of people that can help us, string together the money that is needed. We've got land. We've got opportunity. We've got people who can write the curriculum for us. We've got all of these things, but I think it just takes initiative, and I think it takes the right person to bring people together behind something that's tangible, and for the right folks to say yes. We've got to, cast aside our egos, cast aside our denominational walls. Right. Just because I'm Baptist doesn't mean that I can't work with the AME or Church of God in Christ or Church of Christ or anybody else. I think that, we are all believers, or Muslims for that matter. We are all believers. And so what we should be doing is saying, okay, as people of faith, let's come together. Let's combine our resources for the greater good, and then start small. Let's have success with what we do with starting small, and then expand responsibly based on the success that we have initially. And so I'm promoting this program called Masters Preparatory Academy all over the country. It is a boarding school for African American males. We are part of the Coalition of Schools Educating Boys of Color. Shout out to Kozbach. They're a nationwide organization talking about boys of color. But this is a boarding school for African American males, and we are looking to the church body to help us to seed plant for the founding of this school and the operation of this school moving forward. And so we're starting to have discussions based on everything that we've done over time. And we're starting to gain some traction with what it is that we're trying to do. And we're starting with African American males because on every single metric that you would look at regarding social demographics and everything, African American males are probably the neediest. And so we're starting with young men because we want to take them out of the inner city living environment, put them in an area we can do some character development, strong academic program, get them in shape and really start to reform and reshape the way that they think about themselves in our community. It's going to take some morality. It's going to take some faith. It's going to take a huge educational push and a huge financial push to get this done. But we feel like now's the time to do it. We see all of these brothers that are dying at the hands of police, dying at the hands of other brothers from all over the country. And we've got to change that. And we have to be the ones to take the bull by the horns and start changing it ourselves. Nobody's going to come and do it for us. And so the church plays a key role in doing that. We talked about tradition. We talked about legacy. We talked about institutions today. There's no bigger, better institution in the country for African Americans than the church. My church is 125 years old, and we've got churches that are far older than us, and we have churches that are, far younger than us, but we've got institutional know-how to do the things that are necessary. It just takes us having some leadership and getting each other in the same room with a plan of action that people can have some faith in and getting the job done. And so the church does play a role. The church has not gone away. We are not going anywhere. The church plays a role. And I know that there are some people who are skeptics based on some of the things that they've seen in the church. I know that there's some church hurt for a lot of people. And so they've got kind of a jaundiced eye towards some of the things that is happening within the church. But I want people to put their faith in God, not in man, but in God, and know that even with the negativity that has happened within some of our churches, God still has a plan of action for us, and he will execute for our benefit. He's done it before, and I think he's in the process of doing it again. I've got arrogant faith, bruh.
You have to. Now, when we were talking about agriculture earlier, I seem to have struck a chord with you. When we talk about educating young Black men, you are striking a chord with me.
Sure.
And I want to unpack this endeavor that you're talking about right now. There is a lot of church hurt out there.
Sure.
I know firsthand there's a whole lot of church hurt out there, but I think that subliminally, a lot of us that are church hurt, me included, are still looking at the church and church members to provide some level of remedy to the things that we're going through. Some of the people who I love the most and have the most respect for, while I don't go to church every Sunday, I respect and listen to the words that come out of their mouths, almost religiously, as funny as that might sound.
Yes, sir.
So when you say that that's your idea to combine the church and this endeavor to break the school to prison pipeline, I got flashbacks to driving down the street every day. You look over at a Catholic school and over at a Catholic church, and tacked on to the side of the Catholic church is always a Catholic what?
That's
a Catholic
school right there.
And so I think that you're really onto something with this, but I've got to ask you what's been asked to me 8,000 times when I've been in somebody's office, and that is, what's going to make your endeavor so much different than what everybody else is trying to do? And more specifically, what are y'all trying to teach these young men that's going to stop them from going to prison?
Yeah. So what's different about what it is that we're trying to do is we're coming forth with a group of leadership that has shown that they've got the capacity to do it in other areas. Me personally, I am one of the founding members of a team for a Catholic school, like you just talked about, called Cristo Rey Columbus.
Wow.
Cristo Rey Columbus is a program that's a part of the Cristo Rey network, is nationwide, where they took Catholic schools and resources from the Catholic community and put churches in communities and put schools, in communities specifically for students who could not afford a Catholic education. And so if you think about it, you've got all of these Catholic schools and urban centers that are for the express purpose of, students of color, but students who don't necessarily have the resources to go to those Catholic schools that you're thinking about and pay for them. And so they use a work-study program to help pay for it. I was there and founded one of those schools, and you can look up Cristo Rey Columbus and type in my name, Google that, and you'll see an article that really kind of encapsulates what we were able to do as a team to get that school up and running. Now, I also have on my team, the founder of Masters Prep Academy is a 41-year veteran of education. His name is Dr. Bob Murphy, and he has been on the Catholic school side, on the private school side and on the public school side, and one of the most gifted educators that you will find in Central Ohio. And so we've got a team of people that has demonstrated success. And we also have a program that can be implemented with the right amount of resources. And on top of all of this, with our board chair and our board, we've got dogged faith that we can implement this program and get it done. We're still working with the Catholic Diocese of Columbus to purchase some property from them. And so we're using the broader church as a network to make sure that we can overcome these goals. And so, yes, it makes our project a little bit different than a lot of things that have been done in the past because we were very slow in our planning. That's one thing. We didn't just present folks with an idea, but we presented folks with a plan. Because folks can turn down an idea, but when you present them with a plan and then you show them what the return on their investment can be, they're more apt to give of their resources to that platform. And so we were real intentional about the way that we approach this, and we slow walk the whole the whole program. So that's one of the things that's different about it.
Okay, I think that sounds very powerful. Lo and behold, you are somebody who is doing one of the most powerful things that anybody can do, whether it be in Ohio or across the country. And so I'm also thankful for this conversation because now I have an idea of who I should also be supporting, which is you, James Ragland. Now, when you paint this picture of this school that y'all are building, I'm thinking about the days that I spent in school where the teacher is trying to teach, but all the students got something other than academics on their mind, which is the reason why they can't pay attention. And it's not always that they don't want to do well. It's that, they're in foster care. They get moved from home to home, or their father's not there, mother's not there. And then in the middle of that, you might have 3 or 4 middle to upper middle class kids who can't identify with none of the rest of them. And so it causes the teacher to turn around and start talking about things that have nothing to do with the lesson.
Right.
So are you all planning to incorporate that vertical as well, where we're going to talk about the stuff that has nothing to do with the academics? Because that stuff is what we need in order to activate the rest of our potential. What do you say to that?
Yes, sir. Well, you mentioned what are we going to be teaching to kind of break this school to prison pipeline for the young men, and that is all a part of it. We have already met with Franklin County Children's Services here in Central Ohio concerning their foster care program specifically, and they are really at the table with us already, talking about what it is that we can do to kind of have access to those students that are within the foster care system right now. So if you think about it, an African-American male at age 12, 13, 14, 15 are some of the hardest people to place within our foster care system.
That's right.
Because they've grown up in this environment, and so they're still kind of hard to place at that age group. Where those are precisely the young men that we want to be a part of our program. Like I said, we want to take them out of the inner city, put them in an area where there's isolation so that we can unlearn what they have learned, but utilize the skill sets that they have developed in a lot of cases, living a life in poverty. See, one of the things that I think that we don't necessarily understand is that when you are a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old young man and you've lived your entire life in abject poverty, you do have skill sets. Most people don't look at it like that. They say, oh, well, woe is me. You're 14 years old and you've been poor your entire life. But you have determination. Mm-hmm. You can think on your feet. You've got a sixth sense to know when there's danger approaching and how to avoid it. You know and understand how to scrape and scrap. By the time that you are an adult, you have gone through some of the toughest parts of life. And so if you are infused with the proper skills, all of those things that you have learned through your lifespan can become an asset for you moving forward when you know how to direct that energy towards something positive. And that is precisely what we are going to be teaching our young men. Because, hey, listen, what happens right now, they want to take our young men and all of that toughness that they develop from living in the hood, all of those challenges that they have, what they want to do is they want to put them in the weight room, let them run 4 threes, then put them on the football field.
Yeah.
The basketball court. And hey, listen, that's where they come to get these national championship athletes. They go directly to the hood, and all of those things that you have learned, they know how to use them. They know how to use your toughness when they're telling you go out here and you run for 240 yards against Michigan on Saturday.
Right. Yeah. And hey, for those folks who might be watching it clear across the country, I'm in New York right now. James is in Ohio. But let me tell you guys something. It's always Ohio over Michigan. All the time.
Always.
All right. All the time. It's always going to be that way.
Hey, go Bucks. Go Bucks. Beat them bums. This week it's coming.
Without a doubt. Go Bucks. What you are saying today in this moment right here is the difference. When I ask about the difference, as it turns out, you're actually fired up about the difference.
Yes, sir.
You see how youth in the foster care system or people who go through that type of upbringing, they develop certain intrinsic skills that almost
yes,
can't be taught.
Yes.
You learned a lot of them when you were living an agricultural lifestyle with your family, but all those people in between are slim to none to have some of the levels of grit and resilience that you're talking about. And so we're also raising awareness about is that youth in the foster care system, you got over 90,000 African-American males in the foster care system today, which are currently a potential liability to society when we look at the metrics. But when they receive an investment of human capital, you said it yourself. That's what I like so much about today. Those young men and young women and everybody else who latches on to that movement can become America's next motivators. Amen. So this show was made for you. Now we are rounding third base right now. And I'd like for you to just talk a little bit about how people can get in touch with you. How can people collaborate? How can people get in contact with you?
Sure. And you know, shout out to my brother Will. He's in the chat right now. He says students need a hand up, not a handout. That's true. Absolutely. And for those of you who would like to get in touch with me, the easiest way would be on Facebook. I am under James C. Ragland on Facebook. And so you could go and friend request me. I use Messenger quite frequently because a lot of folks use that platform to get in touch with me. I'm at JRags3784 on Instagram, so you can get in touch with me that way. You can also email me at jragland@raglandenterprises.com, and I try to reply to my email as quickly as I can. All types of ways to get in touch with me, and let's build is my thing. If you would like to get in touch with me, regarding Masters Preparatory Academy, regarding the work that I'm doing with School Choice Ohio, regarding the work that I'm doing with the Columbus City Schools, please get in touch with me. I would love to talk with you. I want to hear from you about what your ideas, especially if you can talk to me about some of the positive things that are happening with where you are from around the country, because, you know, we really do believe here in Central Ohio and in Columbus that we can be the leaders in urban education throughout the entire country. And so I really would love to hear from all of you about some of the success stories that you are having, particularly as it relates to your transition from in-person learning to a virtual learning environment, dealing with COVID. I see board member Berger from Groveport has joined this broadcast, and thank you to all of my colleagues from Central Ohio that are here on this show tonight. But please get in touch with me, James C. Ragland at Facebook. Please give me a friend request, and I'm going to try my best to get back in touch with you as quickly as possible. And again, thank you, Mr. Cedric, for giving me an opportunity to speak here tonight, man.
Without a doubt. As we round third base, I just have 3 questions for you. The first, and we've got about 1 minute for you to answer these questions.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, 1 minute. What is survival to you?
Survival. Improvise, adapt, and overcome. Life will always throw you curveballs. You need to know how to hit it. So you see the first curveball, you might strike. You see the second curveball, you might strike. The next one's coming down the pipe for you. You improvise, you adapt, and you overcome. You never let it slow you down. Life's going to present you with challenges. Do not quit.
What is success to you?
Success means that you can see the hand of God and what it is that you've accomplished. Only what you do for Christ will last. And for me, I like seeing that when I put my mind to something that is not just something that I could have done on my own. I want to make sure that I'm able to see God's hand in what it is that I've done. And if you look at what happened with Christo Ray Columbus and you read that story, there's an article in the Atlantic about that. That is nothing but the Lord willing that team to get something remarkable accomplished. And so you got to see God's hand in it.
What is greatness to you?
Greatness means that you can be remembered for service to others.
James, I want to let you know that I've listened to your story today. I've appreciated your journey, the way that you shared your experiences. Ladies and gentlemen, get your crown emojis ready, because today we're going to give you a crown today while you're still living. We're also going to give you your respect while you can still receive it. We are letting the world know, letting you know, James C. Ragland, you are America's next motivator.
Thank you, brother.
You're very welcome.
I'm honored, man, and thank you to all of those with the. I see the crowns.
Yeah.
God bless you all for that. God is good, man. And all of us have experienced some trials this year. You couldn't avoid it. And one of the things that you can bet your bottom dollar on is that God is in the midst of all of this. God is in the midst of all of this, man. And so I just want to be, in inspiration in any way that I can. Shout out to my children, JC and Nia. Shout out to the Oakley Full Gospel Baptist Church. Thank you for birthing me. I am your product. And shout out to my family.
Absolutely.
Is not just a concept. We live that.
That's right.
I'm just blessed to be a part of that. And Mr. Riley, God bless you. As much as I can promote this platform, I'm going to do it. And if you ever need anything from me, brother, you have all of my information.
Yes, sir. While we are in a moment of thanks, I want to give thanks to all of our supporters, the folks who helped to make this production happen. Everybody else is the point of today's episode. Thank you so much for stopping by today, all right?
Yes, sir.
All righty. There you have it. Each and every episode of America's Next Motivator is going to have something here for you. All you've got to do is stop by and pick it up.